Hey, Ben.
Hey,
How's it going? It's been a while.
long time no see. Yeah.
I was thinking we could talk about some remote watching devices and recycling, if that's cool with you.
Remote watching devices?
Yeah.
I mean, I'm down to talk about whatever with you, but I don't know what remote recycling devices. Remote
That's two things, man.
recycling
One other thing is
and
we're doing this in less than an hour and we're not editing.
oh, all right.
This is Geek Speak. I'm Lyle Troxel, and with me is
Ben Jaffe, you just dropped me in here.
you know it, man. Because the one reason I don't do more episodes is because of all the editing. So I figured, hey, we don't need to edit. We've done this for years.
It's a lot of work.
Yeah, exactly. Geek Speak is recorded from our homes. I'm in Santa Cruz Mountains, and Ben's in Campbell, Los Gatos, whatever.
Mm-hmm.
All right. I want to tell you about this really cool remote watching device. I think that's the thing that brought your attention to what I was saying, right?
Remote watching
Yeah.
device.
So first off, when I was in college, I did some electronics stuff. One of the projects I did, which was like a side project, and I think I got credit for something part of it, was a remote listening device, and it uses a
okay.
laser, and what it does is it bounces a laser off of a surface that's reflective, and you don't actually need to get the exact reflection, but you do need the light to hit something that can both move and also cause enough reflective surface quality that you could pick up again from the sensor in the same device that has a big telescopic lens.
So as the thing you're bouncing the laser off of vibrates and changes the angle, then the light that comes back to your sensor attenuates and changes.
Yeah,
and then you can take that signal and you can turn that back into some sort of a lossy audio signal.
And this is exactly how a microphone works, except for a microphone's pickup is because there's a coil or a magnet on the diaphragm that moves, and that interferes with another magnet, and that, of course, is electricity. And so you can just get the sense from that. And that's how microphones work. In this situation, what you're doing is you're using, let's say, a big pane of glass, like a window. And that actually, when you're next to a window and you're talking, the window is moving a little bit. It vibrates from the audio in the room. And so with this listening device that I made, now keep in mind, I use somebody else's circuit. I was just following a circuit diagram. It basically, yeah, exactly right. It picks up the light, and as the light moves and shifts, it senses that movement and shift, and then turns the electric signal, and you get an audio quality. The audio quality sounds a little. Do you remember like the original Matrix when Neo takes the pill and the chrome thing goes down his throat? Yeah, and you know how that sound has this kind of metal sound to it? It like has a high. That's what the audio sounded like. It had this kind of like aluminum sound to it.
Yeah.
Almost, yeah.
So I might be wrong, but I think that's basically the kind of effect that you get as you decrease the bit depth, basically the resolution of your audio. And that makes a lot of sense because you're reconstructing audio in a way that it's very lossy.
Yes.
And so you basically can't get high resolution audio because you're losing a lot of that resolution in your
and the performance
glass reflect.
The audio performance characteristics of a plane of glass, not so good.
Yeah, that's the other thing I was going to say is that your glass is going to, like if you put a big subwoofer that's like boom, boom, next to a plane of glass, that plane of glass is going to move, right? Because as the air pushes and pulls it, the glass has a little bit of time to accelerate and move. But if you send it a really high frequency, like anything up in the range, I'm assuming that we're not over the radio because that would just be filtered out. That frequency is really high, and so that means that your glass would have to move more quickly, but your glass is heavy, and so it can't. And so you probably get a pretty significant roll off on the high end of the. So if you were to play music and try to reconstruct it, you would just lose all of your cymbals. You know what? And everyone would sound like they're underwater.
I have that kit, and I haven't used it for years. I should pull that back out and record something with it because it really is an interesting effect. use it more for fun than anything else. The other thing about
You
that
know-
project is that I had to figure out how to use a laser diode, which at the time, now keep in mind, this was like in the late 90s. They were not ubiquitous.
A laser diode is an emitter.
Yeah, well, laser pointers.
Yeah.
Yeah, so those are all laser diodes. So it used to be that to make a laser was actually a relatively large device. You had to have a crystal that resonated, like a ruby crystal, and you hit it with light, and the ruby crystal was physically had two parallel ends that put a reflective surface on it. And so the light would bounce back and forth, and eventually would be coherent in the same, a laser. I can't remember exactly what it stands for.
Yeah.
But one end had a bit of would allow some light to come through, and that's how you get a laser. And so when I first played with lasers, it was for that. I had this big tube, and it was, it's the size of like a Pringles can. That's the laser. And then as diode technology got better, people were able to make laser diodes, and that's just like an LED, a light emitting diode. But it's coherent light instead, so it's a laser. And
Coherent just means aimed all in the same direction.
It does mean all aimed in the same direction, but light does a strange thing when it aims in the same direction. It actually, about polarized light?
Yeah.
Okay, so the quality of the light
and polarization is like, just to explain it like I'm 5 years old and don't care about scientific accuracy, is like whether the light's a particle in a wave or whatever. But thinking of it as a wave, it's like whether it's wiggling up and down or left and right. And so when you have polarized sunglasses, for example, they'll block, let's say, all of the light that's wiggling from side to side, and you get only the light that's up and down. It might be the opposite. But that's you get polarized light bouncing off of cars from the sun, and then you can block more of that reflected light that's like shiny and terrible than the rest of the light that's bouncing off of asphalt and devices or people.
And if you've researched polarized light a little bit, you understand that this idea that it's going up and down versus left and right is not exactly, that's metaphoric.
Yep.
Because in reality, we're talking about quantum phase characteristics of the light, and it has to be metaphorical because our brains can't understand that kind of stuff. We won't get into that because, as Miles always says, the more you understand quantum physics, the stupider you get. So
I have a similar one,
yours?
which is the more you learn about quantum physics, the more you believe you know nothing about quantum
yes,
physics.
I think that's exactly, and I think that's what the mathematicians that actually study it and know it really well exactly
It's
believe.
like
intuition's
it's
gone.
like the Dunbar graph, but it never goes back up again.
Yeah, exactly. That's lovely. Anyway, so when I say coherent light, it's kind of like it's all together, kind of like polarized.
all
And
moving the
about
same
polarized
way.
light. I'm not saying those are connected. I'm saying that light has weird effects. Coherent is one of them, and that's what a laser is. So,
Okay.
laser diodes were at first, of course, expensive and difficult and all that stuff. And as you know now, you can get lasers for free because they're, giveaway items. It's extremely inexpensive. At the time, though, I recall having to spend like $35 for this laser diode, and it's a very small thing. And as a college kid, I had no money, and so it was a big deal to get this one laser. In any case, put that aside. That was a fun project, and I'll try to record some audio from it at some point and share it with you. It's kind of cool.
Also, I just got to say, these remote listening, all this remote listening device technology is like really interesting unless you're being sought after by a nation state, in which case it's absolutely terrifying. Because, nobody's going to point a laser at your window and like try to reconstruct the audio from inside of your house unless they're like a nation state who's trying to,
It's so funny because at the time, that's what you could do. And the other thing you could do is you could tap phones. And I also made phone taps, a lot of fun. But in any case, now you can't tap physically. You can't tap phones very easily now because it's all digital. But at the time, physical. But anyway, so forward ahead, I'm curious about the idea of using a laser remotely to pick up information. The article that I'm using right now has the title, "A single laser fired through a keyhole can expose everything inside a room." And they mean visually.
I read this.
Yes. So this
is fascinating, but I'll play dumb.
Okay, cool. You play dumb and ask questions. So there's a Gizmodo article about this, and specifically they're talking about research coming out of the Stanford Computational Imaging Lab, which sounds like a bunch of people that are dealing with computational imaging. And the general idea of this is, again, you have a camera, and you have a laser, and they're very close to each other, and you shine a laser through a very small opening and hit
Like a keyhole.
and hit a surface inside. What happens, and you pull...
Wait, so
Yeah.
with the keyhole, the number of surfaces that you can't really choose the surface you hit inside.
That's right.
Because you're looking through a keyhole. So you can basically hit whatever
it is.
probably a wall on the other side of the room, and that's
Right.
it, right?
And you know about distance finders, laser distance finders? Have you seen these?
Yeah, they work by measuring the speed of light and bouncing a little laser pulse
Yes.
off of something and then measuring when it comes back, right? That's how LiDAR works, actually.
Yeah, and so...
Which LiDAR is insane. LiDAR should not work, but it does.
So this is effectively LiDAR. This is doing the same thing. It's measuring the distance of the light. Now, as you said, if you just hit the pulse, if you just hit it in one spot, you would get the distance from that spot. And in this article, they talk about pulsing. I don't know if the laser pointers pulse. I'm assuming they also do that. But also the the laser measuring devices that you get, I think they might also be a mix of things. I think they have the pointer, but it also might be a sonic-based measuring device too, because it's a little cheaper and less process intensive to measure the speed of light. Because speed of light, spoiler alert, is really fast.
Yeah.
So what they're doing in this is measuring the speed of light. So they hit that one surface, and the laser, and they do it with a very, very short pulse. They hit that laser one spot, and then they're looking back at the same location to see what light comes back.
Okay,
and the
wait.
light bounces off
Can
that
I just
spot
ask a question
and
about
hits
that?
the room. Yeah, go ahead.
So, to a dummy like me who hasn't read the paper, you would just get back one data point, right? You'd get back how far away is the wall.
You would get that as a primary. Then the light would bounce in the room because light does that. And it would bounce off the ceiling, and some of the light that bounced off the ceiling that was parallel would come straight back down and then return back to you. So you'd get another reflection that would be the ceiling, and that would probably be a relatively large one because it's close and parallel to the floor if you were hitting the floor.
Relatively large. That would be tiny, though, because...
Well, compared to the other ones I'm going to talk about, it's really relatively large because the light bounces all over the room.
Right.
And
so
and
it's
it
almost
comes
like...
back.
It's almost like your little laser hitting the wall is almost like a tiny light bulb.
Exactly.
It does a little flash.
That's exactly right. Yeah. Or the floor. I was thinking of the floor. That's why I was talking about the ceiling so much. But yeah, exactly right. It's like a little flash of light right there. And just like radar, where you bounce signals and you wait for returns and then you calculate out the values from that return, you're doing the exact same thing. It just happens to be that everything returns is from one location because that's all you can see.
Can I summarize what you're saying just to make sure I understand?
Please.
Okay. You set up a laser and a sensor, so they're both able to look through a keyhole at a very specific point just across from the keyhole. Who knows where that is? It could be an object in the room. It could be the wall. But you've got one point that you can fire a laser at, and you can also read back whatever light is coming to it. So you fire a little pulse of laser. The pulse of the laser hits the wall, bounces all around the room, and then it hits a bunch of different things. And those different things reflect the laser, and a little bit of that light comes back to that same point that you're looking at, and then you're able to measure the distance. And so basically you've got this like single point where you can understand how much stuff in the room is close to the point that you're measuring at and how much stuff is farther away.
Yes.
And you can kind of get like a graph of that, of distance.
That's right. And additionally...
But you can't tell if something's on the left or the right of that point.
Okay, so this is the part that becomes magic. Because
Are we going to talk about math and just hand wave it away?
I'm going to hand wave all of the article because I highly recommend you read it. If you're at the point where like, yeah, I want more, go ahead and read the article. But the other thing to think about is that it's not just we're not talking about primary reflective reflections. We're talking about secondary, tertiary, and keeps on going.
Yeah.
So what you start getting is a very large data set that comes back. And very large data sets that get produced. So I believe they're using machine learning here, and they're reproducing. They actually get a low-res three-dimensional scan of the entire room.
But they can't. It must be of moving objects though, because with just a point, you can't figure out direction. But with a bunch of points, you could figure out, okay, we've got some sort of a thing in the room that's moving, right? And we've got all of this complex data that there's a bunch of stuff inside of this complex data that no human could understand just on its own, but through the powers of math and perhaps machine learning, maybe they could reconstruct something.
They can. And nice wave handing. Hand waving. That was perfect.
This is like whenever I talk about crypto, I'm like, and then math happens, and this is the result.
Okay, do you have something you want to talk about? I mean, I did just call you in the morning and say, hey, let's record.
You literally called me and said, hey, we're recording Geek Speak.
Okay, Ben, what do you want to talk
about? I'm producing my sister's album, which has been a really fun and also humbling experience.
Does that mean you're recording her music?
So background. At the beginning of this year, I released the first album I ever made, which was pretty exciting. And then I still kind of had some momentum from it, wrote some more songs, released the second album.
Both of these albums are available from the show page of this episode if you want to go listen to Ben's music.
Yeah, then I'll have 5 listeners. One of which is my mom. She listens a lot. She's like half of my Spotify streams are my mom. I love it. But yeah, so then my sister is like, I've written some songs over the last decade. And so she put together an album. She pulled all of her songs together and got a microphone and plays guitar and and we've been passing Logic Pro sessions back and forth. And the knowledge that the main knowledge that I bring to this is like some knowledge about mixing and mastering and compressors and limiters and EQ and all of the various sound manipulation plugins that you typically will use when creating an album. I don't actually know what the word producer means, though, so I.
Well, I mean, I think from the originality of the word, like prior to the music industry or the film industry existing, you are producing something. The thing you're creating is the album.
Yeah, but I also feel weird about that term because it's not my music. I didn't write the music. I did not originally produce it.
Are you recording any parts of the music, or is it just her recording and you're doing the mixing?
Yeah, there are a couple of songs that I'm singing on, and then there are a couple of songs that I do some backup vocals on.
And you do this all asynchronously?
Yeah. We'll have calls roughly every week, and we'll hop on Zoom for an hour and a half or two and go through whatever song we're working on. And usually because I have all of the equipment set up and everything, maybe we'll record a piano track and then we'll kind of work on it together. And but yeah, it's been really fascinating. It's also been I mentioned earlier, very humbling, because there are so many things that can make a mix sound terrible. Like there's so many ways that a mix can just not sound good.
Give me an example.
Okay, so one is if you're working on a piece of music and you're hearing it over and over again, you get used to the way it sounds. And then you get these effectively aural blind spots. You can't hear some things that are objectively just kind of wrong with it. Like, I was listening to one of the pieces just on my phone, because that can totally reset some of one's expectations when listening to a piece of music. And I realized, oh my gosh, the vocals are really quiet here and they're really loud here. And how have I not heard this in the last 2 months, you know?
Yeah.
And it's just because you hear it over and over and over again. This is the way it sounds. And so
you're not
trying to get those things right is really hard.
You're not taking in new information when you hear something over and over again. So your brain's not processing it the same way, right? You're not.
Right.
Yeah, that's interesting.
Or you're taking in a very small, like a slice of it, right? Like,
Right.
oh yeah, I'm working on the piano in this song. Like, I can hear every little thing that's wrong with the piano, but the thing I'm missing is that the vocals are not easy to understand. I can understand them because I know what the lyrics are, but no one else can. So those kinds of things, yeah.
Yeah.
And then also signal processing is hard.
It comes down to, I'll put the signal processing thing aside for a second, but it comes down to that
Yeah.
same thing that you have been on kind of a kick on for the last few years, that our brain's doing a lot to make sense of our senses. And it invents things all the time. And great examples of this with Orally is those ones where it's kind of somebody has a recording of some phrase that sounds kind of like English. And then you listen to the phrase and you make up something that it said. And then you can see a whole bunch of sentences that it might have been. And as you read the sentence, the audio becomes that thing, even though it's kind of not any meaning. Do you know? Have you heard that effect?
Yeah. Actually, a really great example of this is the ba 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 thing, where, and not ba ba black sheep, but where you'll hear an audio recording of someone saying, let's say ba ba ba, and then if the experimenter or if the researcher overlays a video that's synced up of the person going da da da,
so you can see the
with a
mouth
D
with the D sound,
Yeah, you can see the D sound. You're actually hearing the audio from the person saying ba with a B, but your brain will hear it as a da. It doesn't matter if you know.
Right.
The people who are doing this research will say, yeah, I still can't not have this happen. Like, this is a thing that the brain does before you're conscious of any of this.
And our reading capabilities will also do that. So if you wrote the word da and you wrote the word ba independently, but the audio never changed, it would hear whatever the word said. Same deal.
We're very vulnerable to suggestion.
Okay, so all those things come into effect where it's hard to hear it anew. So what do? You said you changed to listen to your phone, so the audio is completely different. Yeah.
Oh, I love this topic. I will happily tell you a couple of the techniques. One is listen to it very quietly. It's tempting when listening to music to listen to it loud, but if you're mixing music, if you're doing production on music, you don't want to listen to it loud, because the louder you play something, first of all, the frequency response of our ears actually changes. Like, we will hear more, which is it? I think we'll hear more bass and treble when it's louder and less when it's not as loud. Or maybe it's the opposite way, I can't remember. But in any case, if you listen to it quietly, you can actually hear things more clearly. Another thing is if you listen to it so quietly that you literally cannot hear it, and then you just turn it up a little bit until you can hear the first thing. That first thing that you hear for most songs should be the vocals.
Oh, interesting.
Even if you can't understand exactly what the words are, if you can hear the vocals first, that's usually a good sign.
I had a friend that recorded a lot. He has a few different bands. They're kind of virtual bands, and he has released CDs. And he said that one of the things he would do as one of his final mixes, he'd burn a CD of the audio, and then he'd go to his car and play it in his car.
Yeah, I did that yesterday, but without the burning a CD part.
You didn't burn a CD?
No, I put it on Dropbox. But yeah, so yesterday I went for a drive. I listened to the whole album, and occasionally would pull over and record some audio notes and then drive again.
Nice.
And then this morning, and last night, I came back and I made all of the changes that I had suggested for myself. And it was a lot of changes, even though the songs were basically done. And then this morning, I played, actually just before you called me, I played the whole album on my phone and came up with a couple of other things. And it's just interesting, the list. It's just a bunch of little things like tweak the drums a tiny bit, because when I was listening in the car, I didn't hear kind of the funkiness of the timing of the hi-hat being a little bit off, or small vocal volume tweaks in the last section of the second song.
I'm sorry, say that again?
Small vocal volume tweaks in the last section. Like, there would be maybe just a word that gets lost. And in the context of the phrase, if you know the phrase, you don't notice. that it gets lost.
Like we were saying.
Yeah. And actually the term in audio engineering for this is getting your mix to translate. In other words, if you listen to it on nice studio monitors, but basically really good speakers, that's not the same as listening to it on more bassy car speakers with road noise, or listening to it on tinny iPhone speakers. And both my sister and I know that my mom's only going to listen on the iPhone, so it's important to get that one right.
Especially since she's your audience.
Yeah, exactly. She's half the audience. I mean, unless this episode, really takes off.
Okay, so then you said another thing is hard is signal processing. Is that what you said?
Yeah,
okay,
signal processing.
What do you mean there?
So, just to give an example, actually, to give the example of my voice right now, we're using a service which is going to do some processing to our voices, right? To make them more podcast ready. If you just took the raw signal of our microphones, especially if we didn't have as good microphones, or if we didn't know to maintain the same distance from our microphones when we're recording and everything, those are things you learn in radio. You need to kind of normalize the volume, so that way it's called AGC, automatic gain control. You don't find that in producing records or albums or whatever. But other things are things like compressors, where you are compressing the dynamic range of the signal. In other words, you're making the quieter sounds a little bit louder and the louder sounds a little bit quieter. And so then if I kind of pull away from the mic a little bit, or if I get really close, or if I say one word louder, it's not going to sound as drastic to the listener as it might if you just listen to the raw audio signal. And then another thing that you can do is...
Can I say something here?
Please.
For just audio recording, for just voice recording, which I've done a lot of editing of voice, obviously, for 20 years of doing radio. In that, it's hard enough to do this. Even when you've just got 3 people speaking with different mics, or if they're all in the same recording, which used to be always that way, it's very hard to get that right. And when you make your loudness too hot, it's actually harder for the ear to hear. But it's easier to hear all of it, but it's harder on the human's processing system. If you remember when we used to have commercials all the time, you'd notice you'd be watching some television show and it had some kind of floor, and then the commercials would get really loud. They weren't actually louder from a peak perspective. They were just more compressed. So they sound louder. But it also means your ear is operating in a very short range of its capabilities in the higher volume range, if you will. So it's just not as a pleasant experience.
It feels like a wall of sound.
Yeah. So getting that level is tricky for audio, for voice. I can't imagine what it's like for music.
If you want to hear an example of a lot of compressing and limiting is basically just like a very hard version of compression, like a very extreme version of compression. But if you listen to something like death metal versus, let's say, a piano concerto, the piano concerto is going to have some louds when they're slamming down on the piano, but it's also going to have some very quiets. The dynamic range is really large. But death metal, screamo, everything is just completely smushed into, the 95 to 100% loud range. And of course, television commercials would do that because they want to get your attention. Yeah. And this is one thing that streaming services have actually really done a good job around, is that instead of trying to get your song to sound loudest on the radio, Spotify will penalize you if your song is too loud. They'll just turn your song down. So there's a way of measuring loudness that's not peaks. It's called LUFS, LUFS, and minus 14 LUFS is the typical thing. Yeah. Yeah, if you go above that, Spotify will turn you down. If you're below that, Spotify might turn you up.
It's great because LUFS level is a calculation capability. Like, you have to calculate it. You can't just hear it. No, I mean, I guess people that are really good at audio could tell.
It's kind of like an average.
Yeah, it's kind of like an average.
It's a more complex equation, but it's like an average.
But I just love this idea that we have this new value that doesn't represent anything a human can really do. You have to use tech to get that, what that level is. I think that's interesting.
The maybe ironic is the wrong word, but I feel like saying the ironic part about it is that these measures exist to try to emulate how loud something sounds to us.
Yes.
Yeah.
That's the really interesting part, is that you're saying that Spotify turns it down if you're too loud. No, it's not that it's too loud, that it would sound too loud to a human ear.
It would sound louder to a human. Yeah, exactly.
This is always a big debate in radio, because depending on the different type of music style, you actually want to change your compression ratios. But the CDs and like original sources normally don't have as much compression as you'd want to put like on FM. And so radio stations will have compressors that do certain things to the audio, but they should actually be tuned to the type of music. So when you and I used to do KSP, there you could actually modify the processing to match the show. So when you had radio talk shows like us, you'd have one level, but then a classical show would come on for 3 hours, and you'd want the processing to be different. And I remember talking to the engineer about how he was trying to do that. But the big thing he said is, just talk a lot closer to your microphone on the radio, because if you do that, the limiting process will kick in, and you'll get boosted from the limiting process rather than the standard compression.
Yeah,
I think we've talked enough about audio for now.
Oh, sure, yeah.
Okay. But
I'll talk about it for 5 hours if you want. But,
but we both have work to do.
You have another topic?
I do. And you can listen to Ben's music that he's already produced. There'll be links to on the show notes. Ben, in 1969 and the early 1970s,
I was not born.
No, we were not born. The environmental issues reached a kind of crescendo in the United States, and this culminated in the first Earth Day. You know about Earth Day, right?
Mm-hmm.
After Earth Day, because it kind of became a zeitgeist to pay attention to, this company called the Container Corporation of America, Chicago-based, decided to have a contest to get a new symbol for their recycling of paper initiative. So they went to colleges and kind of said, hey, submit something. And a guy by the name of Gary Anderson, who was 23 at the time, drew the 3 arrows chasing each other recycling symbol. You know the one I'm talking about?
I do. That's the little triangular one that you see on the bottom of containers.
And yes, for years, this person that submitted it was lost, and finally recycling aficionados found him, and he lives in Baltimore, and he's been a successful person and all that stuff. But the symbol over time has changed quite a bit. What was really interesting about that paper symbol from that one company is it became the de facto recycling symbol for lots of things, not just for this corporation. And now it is the symbol that we see on our recycling bins. We see it on anytime you go to a place that has recycling, and you see it on the stamps on plastic. And the article I wanted to mention specifically is an Ars Technica article talking about a bill that's passed the legislature of California to require the plastic symbol to not be put on stuff that you can't really recycle. So
doesn't this seem like a no-brainer?
Why wasn't this a long time ago? I don't know if Newsom signed it yet, by the way, but yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, it just kind of seems silly. So does this mean that you can literally just put that symbol on anything?
Well, you know how the symbol has numbers in it?
Yeah.
And you can talk about the numbers and look them up and all that?
7.
Yeah, some of those numbers. So I don't know. I didn't look at this detailed enough to know if...
I do know a little bit about this.
Yeah. I didn't look at this article detailed enough about the bill to find out if they're just limiting some numbers or if it was possible to put the symbol on anything. But basically, the symbol's now going to be restricted so that you only can put it on when it represents a high probability of being recycled in California.
There's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. 1 and 2 are pretty recyclable. 3, 4, I think, are harder to recycle. 5 and 6, if I'm remembering right, and this is old knowledge because I toured a recycling facility back like 12 years ago. It was really cool. But I think 5 and 6, I don't know if we really have the capacity to recycle those things in most places. Do you know what 7 stands for?
No.
Everything else.
All the other junk in the world?
7 is not a type of plastic. 7 is everything else. And so, to my understanding, 7 will never be recyclable.
Wow. Yeah, I mean that kind of.
So I wonder if 7's going away. That's my question.
Well, anyway, it's a no-brainer that we actually start informing the population about what is recyclable and what's not.
Yeah,
it just makes a lot of sense, right? Because I mean, I think I would more likely grab stuff off the shelf that was recyclable. By the way, about 9% of plastics are recyclable that we produce, and about 9% of the plastics that we get have been recycled, which is kind of cool.
9% are recyclable. Those aren't necessarily the same 9%. So you've got 9% of plastics. 9%, yeah, 9% of plastics you could put in the recycling bin, and then they would be recycled.
Yeah.
And then of the plastics we get, probably different 9%, mostly different 9%, are plastics that used to be something else.
Yeah, reused. Supposedly, aluminum is extremely good at recycling. It's really easy to recycle aluminum.
Yeah.
Glass
Always
is not bad, of
toss
course.
your foil in the recycling.
Yeah. Well, Ben, that's these articles I've got. You can read more about these up at geekspeak.org. You can subscribe to the podcast, obviously. And, oh, that was the wrong one. But I'm not going to edit that out. GeekSpeak is a registered service mark of David Lawrence, who's used with permission. I'm Lyle Troxel. Today was Ben Jaffe, and we've been talking about recycling, laser listening, and audio processing. Do you like episodes like this where Ben and I don't edit it? We just talk to each other real quick and chat about what's on our mind? Or is this the kind of thing, skip it? If you'd liked it, let us know. If you didn't like it, don't let us know. That the negative information is actually, no information is actually what we need. But if you do this kind of thing, Ben and I can do this every once in a while. It's fun. Right, Ben?
Yeah.
Did that make
Yeah,
sense,
it's true.
what I just said?
It made sense, yeah.
Okay, good. Anything else you want to add?
No, until next time.
Until next time.
Stay safe.
All right. Have a good day at work. I didn't know if the song was going to end, Ben.
Yeah.
It did.
Yeah, it ends.